All right, we're going to get smart about Photoshop today, and we're going to look at smart objects and smart filters in this session. So as we've started this class, for the most part, I've had you work in a smart workspace, and you didn't quite realize it, but whenever we added pictures in so that we could create a composite, we always went to File and Place. And when we place them, they create as smart objects. So I'm in Photoshop right now, but if I replace this hairy picture on top of the existing hairy picture and hit OK, it becomes a smart object. See the little icon in the corner? That represents a smart object. So you can see the background layer one is not a smart object. Now that mattered not much in the past to us, but it's going to matter a lot in this particular unit. We're also going to talk about why it's important to think smart whenever you're dealing with Photoshop. So let's kind of get to it. The order of doing these things, by the way, also matters. So I'll kind of address various little parts of this here as we go. All right, so I'm going to just delete this and duplicate this layer. So I'm just going to right click and duplicate the layer so that I have two of them. And then I'm going to make the top layer a smart object, but I'll right click and convert to smart object. So they're exactly identical, right? Except this one, of course, is smart and this one is normal. This one is also a locked background because in Photoshop the background is locked. So I'm just going to click on it to unlock it. So now that I can, I've got that, I can mess with both of these independently. All right, so I'm going to, I'll just double click and name this one smart just so that you don't get confused. I'm going to take the dumb one and put it on top. Going to then Control T, or if you're in Photopea, Control Alt T, and I'm going to just scale this down and make it little and just kind of stick it over here with my move tool out of the way. So one of the things that is a really big deal when you're dealing with Photoshop is layers, and the fact that layers are raster layers. Remember, raster layers are made up of pixels, and so if you make a raster layer bigger, then it's going to get blurry. And that's the same even with a smart object, except smart objects retain their original size. So with this one here, I scaled it down. That's called downsampling, by the way. When you scale something down, when it's not smart, it's just a regular rasterized layer. If you scale it down, you're downsampling it. So basically Photoshop says, hey, throw away all the extra pixel information now. We've condensed this, so we're good. But that's a problem because then if you try to go up, you're going to have problems. It's going to be pixely, or in most cases, it's just going to be blurry. Okay, so now this isn't the greatest picture, to be perfectly honest. In the beginning, it was kind of blurry anyway whenever I acquired it, but I'll just set this at like 90%. So you can see this one, I mean, it's kind of blurry, but that was the picture to begin with. So here's our little picture, which looks pretty good right now, right? It doesn't seem to have any problems. But now that I've downsampled it, I'm going to resize it. So I'm going to press Control T. I'm going to make it bigger, and I'm holding Shift, of course. And as I scale up, notice how the pixels are developing in here. I hope you can see that. Like, it's getting pixely already, honestly. Okay, so I've got it scaled up. And oh, by the way, it always looks worse until you hit your check mark and sit it down. And then it'll clean it up a little bit. But I'm going to click my check mark. All right, now we've got that. But let's look at it compared to the other one. Just look at the eyes. See the difference there? So there's definitely a difference here, and we can tell that because we went little and then we went big, we lost some of the fine details. See how up here in the hair, we've lost some of the crispness. It's just blurry, whereas here we've still got all those little pieces, okay? So we do want to work a lot of the times in a smart way, meaning make things smart objects. I'm going to delete this. And you want to make them smart objects before you start doing things like selecting them. Well, let me show you why real quick. I'm going to duplicate this layer again and make it not smart. So I will rasterize it. So this is the rasterized layer. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing to both of these. So let's say I'm on my first layer. I'm going to go to my smart layer and I'm going to select, I'm just going to use the easy Photoshop. I'm going to click on my quick selection, go to select subject. By the way, little tips about the select subject. Remember, we go into select a mask, take a look at it. You can, and here's what I would suggest you do. Smooth out a little bit on here so that the skin and stuff is smooth. I'm just going to smooth this a little bit. And then that's going to mess up the hair. Don't use the hair refine brush yet. Go ahead and smooth it and put it out to a selection, just marching ants, and hit OK. And then go back in and then do the hair. So then take your little hairbrush and come up in here to get the little hair pieces. That's just a little tip, because that way you can smooth out all those rough edges, but then fix the hair. All right, so that looks good. Now I'll put it on a layer mask. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. So that's done. It's a smart object. Okay. Now, on this other one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to mess with the hair because I just don't have time. So let's say we've got it good. I'm just going to put it on a layer mask. Okay. Now I'm going to make this one a smart object. So I'm going to right click it, right, and convert to smart object. Now look what happens. See that? So it's a smart object. It's got that in the corner, but I don't see the layer mask anymore because it took the layer mask and the original layer and it turned them both into a smart object together. Okay. Now, is it right or wrong? No, but I like to be able to see my layer mask while I'm working, and I can't do that here. Now, the other thing about a smart object is it always points back to its original object, its original information. So like it remembers all the beginning pixels. It doesn't throw them away when you downgrade it, when you resize small. So what you can do is anytime you have a smart object, you can double click it, the little icon right there. Just double click that icon. And what it does is, notice here in Photoshop, it says rasterized, PSB. Okay. It's just telling you, hey, you're working inside the smart object now. So now I can see my layer mask, like it's in there. So now I can do all the normal things, but it's like I have to go inside the smart object to do them. Okay. And it's not like it's awful. Maybe you don't want to see a bunch of things that you're doing in the smart object. So, you know, there's reasons why you might do it. So if I did make a change in here, I would just hit this little X and say yes to saving, and then it would fix it in here. So what I'm saying to you is go ahead and make the layer a smart object before you do any masking, before you do any selecting. That way your layer mask will show. Okay, so if for some reason your layer mask disappears when you make something smart object, it's because it already had one and it threw it into the smart object. Okay. Now, I'm going to re-rasterize this smart object. I'm doing a lot of this right now here. So I'm going to rasterize this layer so it's not smart anymore. And I want to show you then how smart objects automatically have what are called smart filters. Okay, so under the filter menu, we have lots of filters. I'm going to do a whole second video and we'll get detailed into filters. But for this introduction video, just understand that if I'm on a rasterized layer, my filter menu is going to say, hey, you want me to convert this for smart filters? Because it even knows. Like, it's like, think about doing that. If you don't and you pop in here, you can do any of these things, but they're destructive. You've probably known me long enough to know that I don't like destructive. So I'm going to go in here and do pixelate. And I'll just do mosaic. It just puts pixels. Okay, and I can choose the size of the pixels. Like, say this. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. All right, bam. So it's pixelated. Okay. Does it look like it has a layer mask? Does it look like I can fix it later? No, like it did it to the layer. Now, watch me do it to the smart object. So I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to go the same thing. I'm going to go to pixelate and I'm going to go to mosaic. I'm going to pop this up. It's got the same settings. Actually, I can't quite see it because it's behind the other one, but I'm going to hit OK. All right. Now, these look almost identical. So the bottom one is the one we're looking at now, and that's the one from before. So they're pretty close. But look how different this bottom one is. So I have this button, and I can turn the filter off and on. See? That's important. The other thing that I can do is I can paint, because we have a layer mask, and we know what layer masks do, right? So I could paint in this layer mask. If I wanted to, I could take a black paintbrush and paint, like I'll get a big paintbrush here. It's like paint over his face. Like his face would be normal, but everything else would be pixely because it has a layer mask. And I can say, hide that filter from that part of the image. Okay. The other little thing you need to know about these smart filters is there's a button in this on the side of this smart filter. So where it says mosaic here. By the way, you can add multiple smart filters so you could see them go down just like layer styles. But I'm going to double click here. And this is going to open up my blending options. So in the previous unit, we talked about blending modes, right? You can change the blending mode of the smart filter. So I could say instead of doing this to the whole picture and just, you know, destroying it like this, I could choose one of these options. And then see like it's doing the blend mode and it's pixelizing it. And I can go through here, of course, and modify the opacity too. And it's not doing anything to the face because the face is painted out on here. So to get to those blending options, you have to click the icon over here on the side. All right, so anyway, see the difference? Smart filters, tons more options. And then if I go up and I'm like, okay, let's do something else. Let's do distort and ripple or whatever. So ripple is probably not the best one to choose, but anyway, so you can see it does this like weird painty looking thing. I'm gonna hit okay. Now I have the ripple one on here. So you have both. You have two different ones, and I can reorder them. I can move them around so that it does one and then it does the other one. So the order that you do them is going to make them look different. Anyway, Photoshop has a lot more filter options than you're going to see in Photopea. They both have what's called a filter gallery, which I'm going to talk about in the next session. That's pretty cool. Photopea just doesn't have much in their gallery, to be honest. Okay, let's quickly look over at Photopea and then we'll take a break. So here's this image. I'm going to convert it for a smart object. So there it is. Remember, convert it first, then select it. This one, our magic cut's going to work great. So I'm going to go in here. You do have to do a little bit of touch-ups. So if you haven't done that in a while, let's take a look and see what that's going to look like. I'm going to miss his hair and all of this different stuff here. So I'm going to paint in green up here over the areas I need to keep. And it's going to get mad and grab the wall here in a minute. Oh, well, it didn't, so I'm doing okay. Oh, I got my green out of there, so let's erase that fix there. Okay. All right, this isn't perfect, but I think it's good enough for now. I'm going to put it out to a mask. So there it is. Okay, and then filter. And I can go into pixelate, and I can go into mosaic. You can see we've got the same thing. Oh, guess what I just did? This is kind of funny. I wasn't clicked on the layer. I was clicked on the layer mask. So the edges of the layer mask are pixely. Whoops. Let's cancel out of that and click on the actual layer. Okay, there we go. Filter, pixelate, mosaic, and there you go. Same concept that we had in the other one. Still got the little white box. Still take my paintbrush and do whatever I need to do. Bam. And then over here, there's that little icon. It looks a little different in Photopea, but it's still there. Just click on that. And then we have our blend mode, so we can choose to do those blends. And we have our opacity slider. Okay. So those are your basics here of just kind of getting around in either Photoshop or Photopea using filters. Now we're going to actually do something productive to this image. So keep it open. Make sure you've got your notes sort of caught up here. And then in our next session, we're going to use this picture and do some cool stuff.